Are we ready, guys? So I've already started by preheating some water. I put about 8 to 10 cups in this big pot. I put it on medium-high heat. So just kind of turn that up and get that up to a rapid boil before we add in our gluten-free pasta. If anybody had a hard time finding the Jovial pasta, that's okay. There are a ton of other options on the market. This is just one. Any pasta that is free from white flour is a great option. It's lower from an inflammation perspective, and it's still super versatile, cooks up very much the same, it has a great flavor and a great texture. So tonight I'm going to be using this one, and it cooks just like normal pasta. So these directions recommend 13 minutes, so I'm going to kind of keep my eye on the time before I add them in. But I went ahead and washed my zucchini, so we're just going to start with cutting that and getting it ready. Let me know if at any time there's an issue with the audio or with the video, and we can kind of adjust. So for the zucchini, I picked some that are a little bit on the smaller side, just so that they there's some more consistency in the sizing. I'm just going to start by taking the ends off, and then I'm going to cut little moon sections that are about 1/4 of an inch thick. You could even, for this recipe, since it's going into a pasta, you can even chop it into like coarse chunks. That's a great option as well. While our pasta is boiling, it's a great time to do these other items and get ready. So we'll go ahead and give the zucchini a chop.
Natalie, we got a good group. They're already really active in the chat. Let's see, Diane and her husband Vic are cooking along. Carol has a question. Is the pasta you are using gluten-free?
Yes, so this one is made from brown rice and corn. Some of the other great options are made from like brown rice or chickpeas or lentils. There's even pastas that are made from quinoa. There's even options that are made from edamame, which is the soy-based product, but still it's not fermented. So those are great alternatives to white flour if you do not have a gluten allergy. So yes, these are gluten-free. I've also got the Jovial gluten-free pasta as well, but this was more in line with what the recipe looked like. And so I'm going to go ahead and use these tonight. I feel like each and every one of the gluten-free options that are on the market have their perks. Some cook differently, they have a better texture, and it all depends on what you like. I like a pasta that still has a little bit of firmness, that's not going to fall apart. And sometimes with these gluten-free alternative options, that's something to take into consideration. So a lot of times I'll kind of reduce my cooking time just so I still have a really nice al dente pasta. So I've got some zucchini ready to go, and we're gonna get our pot ready. Can y'all guys see me over here?
Yep, we can see you.
Oh, great. So I'm gonna add in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm gonna bring that up to a medium-high heat. And then also, while my pasta is getting ready, it's a good time to cut our chicken. So I'm going to move the zucchini out of the way. We also have some lemons to squeeze and to zest. And so while we're waiting on this, and while typically my pot wouldn't be quite ready yet, but if you're cooking with me and you're waiting on that pasta to boil, that's a great time to kind of get everything else ready. So we're going to go ahead and squeeze lemons and zest them, as well as get our parsley ready, cut our chicken, and then it's really just about transitioning to the stove and cooking everything. So next I'm going to go ahead and get my parsley ready. So I've got a big fresh bunch of parsley out of the produce section, and I'm just gonna cut the flowers away from the stem. That noise is horrible, I apologize, y'all. And you're looking for about half of a cup of the fresh parsley. Of course, you can add more depending on your preferences, but at least about half of a cup. That's really going to go a long way in this recipe as far as providing flavor without having to use a pre-made seasoning or something that is sauce-based or salt-based, I'm sorry. So once I get a good amount of this cut, and it doesn't have to be perfect since stems are totally fine, but I like to get as much of the leafy green as possible. And just kind of go ahead and have that ready while we're waiting on that water. So I've got a good handful of parsley here. I'm just going to transfer it into a little bowl and set it aside for later when we are ready to add that in. So I'm a clean up as I go kind of girl. A lot of times I'll keep a little trash bowl, but also I'll just step off screen and toss stuff away. It kind of helps keep my area nice and clean, and also just makes things a lot easier as we're going through the process and cooking. So my pan over here for the zucchini is good and hot, so I'm gonna go ahead and add that in. I want to create a nice little layer in this pan, and I want them to get a slightly bit brown. So I'm not going to stack them on top of each other or just simply dump them.
Hey, Natalie, quick question for you. With the parsley,
Yes,
there was a question about, do you not use any of the stems at all from the parsley?
So great question. So here's a good example. So this part of the stem, can y'all see this? This part of the stem is actually pretty tender, and once I put it into the hot pasta, it's really gonna soften down. So I don't get too particular or caught up on that. I just don't want to feel like I'm eating a stem. I really want that nice fragrant flower like the leaf. So I do kind of coarsely chop the flowers away from the stem. We don't have to get too granular on it. It's still flavorful, but it's nice to have these pretty little flowers. So now that the zucchini is in, I'm going to give it a little bit of a seasoning with some garlic and some onion powder. Basically, I'm just going to sprinkle this over top. I've turned my heat back to more of a medium low. I'm cooking with gas, so it has a tendency to be really hot. And I don't want to burn them. I don't want them to be too soft, but I want them to get a little bit of color and be nice and tender when we go to incorporate them into everything else. So while we're waiting on that, we're going to go ahead and do our lemon. For this, we're going to use 2 lemons. So I'm going to start by halving these. And then I will be using some lemon zest. So I use a cheese grater. There are fancier options out there, but this does the trick. And just simply kind of grate roughly that lemon across. You can also do this before you cut it. It has a tendency to be a little bit easier and give you some more space so you don't have to worry as much about your fingers. How's everybody doing? That smells so good. It really, really makes me want like a big iced lemonade in the sun, middle of summer with just smelling the lemons and zesting them. Oh, I'm so ready for summer.
Everyone's doing great, Natalie. There was a question about how much of the lemon zest do they need for the recipe? And yes, they agree. Lemons smell amazing.
Usually I zest 2 lemons. It's one of those areas where if you really love that brightness and the fragrance of lemon, you can always add more. I like to remind people that like cooking and creating food, it's not like an exact science. It's more of a feel. And so a lot of times, you know, if I look at this based on the size that I'm cooking, I may say, ooh, I need a little more. And just add a little extra lemon. These are also small. If you can see, like they're pretty small. So if I had a bigger lemon, maybe I wouldn't need but 1 lemon zest. But these are kind of small, so I'm gonna go ahead and zest most of 2 of them. So that's one of those things where it's more of a feel. It's definitely gonna add brightness. The lemon juice itself is gonna give it plenty of that flavor. But it's an area where you really can't go wrong. So I'm gonna get this lemon zest together so that it's ready for our recipe. And we'll go ahead and do lemons. I have my handy dandy juicer. If any of y'all don't have these, I have one on my Amazon shop. They're pretty affordable and they're a great option for making this process pretty easy. You always want to squeeze your lemon with the actual fruit side down, skin side up. I picked these smaller lemons for this recipe because they were nice and ripe. So they're pretty soft, they're not super hard. And whenever I'm purchasing lemons, and I know that I'm gonna need to use them pretty quickly, like I need them in a recipe, I always try to look for ones that are nice and ripe, not super duper firm, because you're gonna get more juice out of those and they're gonna be easier to squeeze. So juice of 2 lemons, check. I'm also gonna go ahead while I have these lemons and cut some for later as garnishes, just to have on the side. My zucchini is doing well. It's about time to flip that. I'm a multitasker in the kitchen. I know some people, that's kind of hard, but for me, it's just a way to be really efficient and take a recipe that may take more time and make it a little more streamlined. So I'm gonna go ahead now that my water's up to a high boil and add in the pasta. This bag is identified as 6 servings. So for me, I could probably stretch that to more like 8. So typically, a lot of times, even when I'm having a pasta dish, I'm putting it over leafy greens. And so it ends up going a little bit further. The greens add a little bit more of a bulk to my recipe and like to my meal. And so what they say is 6. For me personally, it's more like 8. All right. Lemons are zested. Okay, so I'm gonna go and flip our zucchini. It has to be about time. Yeah. I'm gonna add back a little bit of heat to these and give them a good flip. How's everybody doing?
Everybody's doing good, Natalie. Marjorie has a question for you. Marjorie, if you want to unmute yourself and ask away.
Sorry, I was trying to get my hand where I could unmute. So I was wondering if you're trying to zest the lemon. Well, I'm glad you can't see me on the camera because I didn't look like you did at all. And then you're losing it in the grater. Like, what are the tips?
So a lot, like if you're using a cheese grater, it definitely gets stuck on the inside here. And a lot of times I'll just use the back side, like the not sharp side, because we don't want to mess up our actual blade. I use the back side of a knife and wiggle it in there and kind of scoop out that lemon zest that's getting stuck inside. But that's a great question. I mean, of course, the lemon zest or the little device, that's a great option as well. But you can always use a little spoon or even a fork and kind of get in there and get anything that's sticking to the inside.
Thank you.
Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so I've given all of my zucchini a flip. So one of the last times we did zucchini for a home class, I made sweet potato and zucchini fritters. Y'all, those things were so good. I've made them a couple of times since, and I really love them. And I'll take an egg and poach it, and then put it over top of the zucchini and sweet potato fritter. Oh boy, it's really, really good. So I'm gonna give this pasta just a little stir to make sure it doesn't stick. And I'm gonna add a little bit more heat to the zucchini. I really want a nice brown color. Here's a great example. Kind of, you can see that zucchini is starting to turn golden brown on the outside. So that's what we want to see. We want nice tender zucchini, a little bit of browning, but not too much. I'm also gonna season this side of the zucchini with a little bit of that garlic and onion powder. It already smells great. Okay. I'm gonna go back in and check on my pasta. Okay. Hey Siri, set a timer for 6 minutes. You know, it's really great that we have all of these options close by and that I can get Siri to set timers for me so that I don't get too carried away when it comes to cooking things like a pasta that are a little more time sensitive. So it's a great option whenever you put that in, just to go ahead and set a timer so that you're able to stay on track with that recipe. Herbs are okay. Okay. Now that we have our lemon ready, our lemon zest is ready, and our zucchini is getting close to halfway, we're gonna go ahead and chop those chicken thighs. Those are gonna be going in next. So basically, one of the reasons that I went ahead and did my vegetables, then my fruit, and then my herbs here on this cutting board is so once it comes time to use or cut those chicken thighs, I won't have to wash my cutting board. It'll be clean and I won't have to worry about contaminations or about swapping cutting boards. For a lot of people, that's always a concern. And so for me, I just try to make sure that I start with items and then end with my raw meat product. So I'm gonna take a peek at the zucchini and take a peek at the pasta just to make sure we're still on track. All right, this looks really good. If your zucchini needs another flip, now's a great time to go ahead and do that. We don't want it to get too brown on one side. How's everybody doing?
No more questions so far.
Good. All right. So my zucchini is starting to get nice and brown. I'll show you kind of what we're aiming for. This side, you've got a nice golden color, a little bit of your crispiness. And so it's a great time to go ahead and turn that. And we'll get our chicken ready to go in next. So this should only take a couple more minutes. All right, so for these chicken thighs, I'm using boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I'm gonna add half of that lemon juice. And I'm just gonna give this kind of a coarse chop. Chopped chicken thighs will cook really fast, and they're a great option for incorporating into things like pasta because they do add so much flavor. And we're actually going to use that fond in the pan. We're going to create a fond in the pan to add more flavor to this dish. So because we're not using a all white chicken breast, we're going to have a little bit more fat and a little bit more texture. So I just kind of give this a coarse chop. And I got six boneless, skinless thighs, or yeah, 6 boneless, skinless thighs. So this should be more than plenty for 4. By the time we add in leafy greens and we add in nice pasta and zucchini, not only are you going to get a ton of flavor, a bunch of texture, but you're going to get a really hearty meal. All right. So my zucchini is almost done. Once that gets done, this chicken will go directly in that same pan. So again, we're really only dirtying up 1 big pot and 1 pan. I like recipes that don't call for 1,200 things. It makes it easier, and especially on a Thursday night where you've had a full day in the office or maybe you're working. You want something that's fresh and delicious, but you also want something that's under 30 minutes and doesn't require a ton of dishes.
I like your tip about doing the vegetables and herbs first before the chicken too, because then you only have to use 1 knife and 1 cutting board. Where if you did it the opposite order, you would have to use a different one. So love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just a little way to kind of save you time and energy when it comes to being in the kitchen and cooking. Even if I have to cut it and set it aside, I'll use like a Pyrex dish. These are great sizes. I'll use a Pyrex dish and go ahead and cut everything I need and kind of set everything aside and get it ready. So then it's much simpler to actually cook. So my zucchini is ready. So I am going to wash my hands and then I'll be removing that from the heat.
Hey, Natalie, question about what you put on the chicken.
So that is in the recipe, it calls for the garlic and onion powder, the minced garlic and onion. And I just mixed it together and eventually I'm going to use this whole thing for the recipe. So I just gave it a quick little season with that garlic and onion and that's it. Nothing too crazy. You can definitely add if you have like dried parsley or dried thyme. Those are great options, but because we're using a fresh herb and we're going to be adding that in toward the final stages of this recipe, I'm going to hold off on adding the parsley until we get there. So my zucchini's done. Again, I'm going to use one of these little Pyrex dishes, transfer that over. And then I'm going to immediately add chicken into that same frying pan. I like that sound. I'm going to spread that all out nice and evenly, and then I'm going to add another 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then this recipe calls for the red chili flakes. If you like a little bit more of a spicy dish, now's a great time to go ahead and throw in a little piece of that. If you want less of a spice, you can definitely either eliminate it completely or only add in a little bit at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little sprinkle in. And now is time for our pasta. So I'm going to give that a check. I've got my really big strainer here. But what we're looking for is a nice tender pasta that's not overcooked. So yeah, this is going to be pretty hot. You don't want it to completely smush. If you were to put it between your fingers and apply a little bit of pressure, you want it to kind of remain a little bit firm. So what I'm going to do, the recipe calls for saving 1 cup of that water. So I'm going to go ahead and pull 1 cup of the pasta water. So the reason we pull the pasta water is because one, not only is it nice and hot, but it's also starchy. I'm going to set that aside for later. And I'm going to go give this pasta a strain, and I'm going to put it back in this pot. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit here on our chicken. Because I set that timer for 6 minutes, if I have other things to do, that pasta's going to be okay for an extra minute or two while I make sure everything else is tended to. So my chicken is cooking up very nicely. I do want to give it a little bit more heat so we get a nice browning. Awesome. And once we're straining this pasta.
Let us know how you're doing, guys. I bet y'all's kitchens are smelling good by now.
Yes. Yes. All right. The chicken is looking close. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is get my big platter out and get ready to actually plate everything up and then make our food. So here I have 1 cup of the shredded Parmesan. Once our chicken is cooked, this is going to go into that with a portion of that pasta water, along with the additional lemon juice, garlic, onion, tiny touch of the red chili pepper flake. So So some great ways to make this recipe go even further is by adding in things like cherry tomatoes. You can even chop and add in asparagus. Those are great ways to like really up the veggie portion of this meal. So not only are you getting a really clean carbohydrate, you're getting a nice source of protein that's high in fat versus a really lean chicken breast, but you can also add in whatever vegetables you like. And so in addition to that, I'm going to be serving it over top of organic baby spinach. If this is y'all's first class with me, I love any type of greens. I just kind of stir them in and incorporate them into the dish, but definitely keep some of these on hand. Utilize them wherever possible. I put them under scrambled eggs. I put them under pasta. I put it on sandwiches, salads, all the above. All the greens, all the leafy greens, all the time. So I'm gonna get this chicken a little stir to flip. Chicken is getting slow. I'm going to keep stirring that intermittently. I'm going to go ahead and get our bowl ready and have things lined up to plate. So for this dish, I am going to use a bowl. With pasta, I love a good bowl. This one's a little bit on the smaller side. And I'm just going to start with some of those greens. These are organic, pre-washed. You don't need a ton. Just something to add texture and variety there. And if you want to go ahead and add in asparagus or have that ready, I recommend just using the asparagus tips. Since we've already dirtied up our cutting board, we can always just fold these and they're going to break and give us nice little chips. And then I really want to put cherry tomatoes in this as well. So I've got some here ready to go. And then I'm going to be having a dear friend Evie eat dinner with me tonight following our class. So I'm going to make a little plate for her too. And add in some of that asparagus.
Now, is the asparagus raw or did you blanch it?
This is raw. If you wanted to have a little bit more of a tender asparagus, we could set this aside and add it in when we add the pasta into the dish. So we can definitely do that and just incorporate it in with the whole mixture. Actually, I'm going to do that because I think that that'll give everything a really nice flavor. When I buy asparagus, especially if I'm going to be using it in a pasta style dish, I look for really thin, young, tender asparagus. Some asparagus that's on the market is like a thick, it almost looks like a tree trunk. That's something that I would reserve for more of grilling. Those are great and they have the time and place. However, in a pasta dish where I want something that's really tender, I'm going to opt for the thinner, more delicate asparagus. All right, so my chicken is cooked pretty well. I'm going to reduce that heat. And I'm going to transfer that to the same bowl that my zucchini is currently in. Y'all, this smells so good. All right. In that same pan, I'm going to reduce the heat down to low. Can y'all still see me, hear me, all that? And I'm going to add in half of that cup of our pasta water. And the 1 cup of parmesan, along with a sprinkling of that chili flake, and the rest of my garlic and onion mixture. So basically what we're kind of doing here is we're making a homemade Alfredo sauce. It's going to be lighter. It's going to be less calorie dense. It's going to have a little bit more of a mild texture and taste, but it's going to still be really good and creamy. So I'm also going to add in that lemon juice. And I'm going to give that cheese a second to actually melt down. So also going to add in that lemon zest. I feel like being a little spicy today, so I'm going to add in some more fresh chili peppers. You could very easily utilize this dish in the base of it and then kind of add in spice or even add in sweet peppers or butternut squash, like really truly whatever your heart desires. The key is a ton of flavor and a nice healthy meal. So this is looking great. Y'all, this smells so good. I'm gonna add in some extra parmesan. Who else loves Parmesan cheese like Caesar salads with parm? All right, so my cheese sauce here has reached a nice consistency. It's not too runny. It's not super clumpy. I did use all of my pasta sauce and I did add in extra cheese, but I kind of want this dish to be nice and saucy. So now I'm gonna add back the chicken and the asparagus, or sorry, the zucchini. Just gonna dump that in, give that a second. Now's when you can definitely salt and pepper to taste. You can also add in asparagus if you're wanting a little bit more of a vegetable pop. You can add in the sliced cherry tomatoes. You could even add in raw spinach and cook it in that process. I may do that. I'm really wanting like a ton of veggies and a ton of texture. So I'm gonna just add some in. So now I've got the asparagus, the zucchini, and our chicken, and I'm just folding it into our cheese sauce mixture. Y'all, this looks so good. All right. Now, this recipe again is aimed to serve 4 to 6. But for me, because I've added in extra vegetables and because I've added in extra vegetables and I'm going to be serving it over top of bed of greens, I can very easily stretch that a little bit further. So I don't know if y'all guys can see what I just did, but I just kind of filled up this pot with the noodles. And I'm gonna fold them in as well. Y'all, this looks so good. How's everybody doing? And then
Everybody's doing good.
before I forget, I'm gonna go ahead and add in about half of that chopped parsley. If I see any stems, I'll just kind of pull them out and kind of pull them off. Oh, this looks so good. All right, I'm gonna give this another stir now that we've got the parsley incorporated. And we can go ahead and turn back our heat, and it's pretty much ready to serve. All right, I'm really excited for this. Y'all, this looks absolutely phenomenal. I'm very much looking forward to this. And then to garnish this dish, I'm just gonna add a couple of cherry tomatoes and serve it over greens. How's everybody doing? Everybody good?
Everybody's doing good.
Good.
Yeah, it looks amazing as usual.
Yes, this looks so just decadent and filling and hearty. Gonna add some more fresh creams. And then of course we can serve it alongside a couple of lemon wedges and then give it an additional little squeeze of lemon juice. And of course you can top it with some extra cheese. Oh, this looks good. How's everybody doing? Who's ready to eat?
Everyone says they're hungry. Yum. It's looking good. It's smelling good. Diane says they're doing great. They're very hungry. Oh, that looks good, Natalie.
Yes, I wish y'all guys were all here to enjoy this with me. Maybe one day we'll actually get to do these in person.
Yes, can't wait. And we can all have a taste. It'll be so delicious.
Yes, thank y'all guys so much. Of course, if you have any questions or you're looking for healthy options, I'm a great resource and I'm glad to help. We also specialize in healthy meals and make them super convenient. We have pickups and drop-offs in Alamance and Guilford counties. But please take a look at NatPacks on Instagram or Facebook and feel free to ask me any questions.
Yes, you guys check out NatPacks. It's such an awesome local service. Everyone's saying this was so much fun, Natalie. I'm not seeing any other questions, but you guys don't hesitate to reach out if you think of something afterwards. For those of you that were just watching, like me, have fun trying out this recipe. Thank you so much, Natalie, for all your time and energy putting together this series and cooking up these delicious meals for us. She'll be back with us in a few months. Yeah, so everybody have a great night.
Good night, y'all. Thank you.